How and why do some public figures who were famous in their own time become part of a nation's historical memory, while others fade away or are confined to what is known on the internet as niche fame? Robert Green Ingersoll, 1833 to 1899, known in the last quarter of the 19th century as the Great Agnostic, once possessed real fame as one of the two most important champions of reason and secular government in American history, the other being Thomas Paine. Indeed, one of Ingersoll's lasting accomplishments as the preeminent American orator of his era was the revival of Paine in the historical imagination of a nation that had been the beneficiary, throughout its revolutionary era, of some of the most memorable words ever written in the cause of liberty. Ingersoll stepped onto the public stage as the leading figure in what historians of American secularism consider the Golden Age of Freethought, an era when immigration, industrialization, and science, especially Charles Darwin's theory of evolution by means of natural selection, were challenging both religious orthodoxy and the supposedly simpler values of the nation's rural Anglo-Saxon past. That things were never really so simple was the message Ingersoll repeatedly conveyed as he spoke before more of his countrymen than elected public leaders, including presidents, in an era when lectures were both a form of mass entertainment and a vital source of information. Traveling across the continent at a time when most Americans did not, he spread his message not only to urban audiences, but to those who had ridden miles on horseback to hear him speak in towns set down on the prairies of the Middle West and the cattle grazing lands of the Southwest. Between 1875 and his death in 1899, Ingersoll spoke in every state except Mississippi, North Carolina, and Oklahoma. Known as Robert Ingersoll to his clerical enemies, he raised the issue of what role religion ought to play in the public life of the American nation for the first time since the writing of the Constitution, when the founders deliberately left out any acknowledgement of a deity as the source of governmental power. Ingersoll said of the founders, "They knew that to put God in the Constitution was to put man out. They knew that the recognition of a deity would be seized upon by fanatics and zealots as a pretext for destroying the liberty of thought. They knew the terrible history of the Church too well to place in her keeping, or in the keeping of her God, the sacred rights of man. They intended that all should have the right to worship or not to worship, that our laws should make no distinction on account of creed. They intended to found and frame a government for man and for man alone. They wished to preserve the individuality of all, to prevent the few from governing the many, and the many from persecuting and destroying the few." Of course, this view of the founders' intentions is far from universally accepted in the United States today. It is unlikely that any American politician with national ambitions would dare describe the secular spirit and letter of the Constitution so forthrightly in the 21st century. They knew that to put God in the Constitution was to put man out. It is all too easy to envision this sentence in a 30-second attack ad on a modern politician who openly advocates secular values. Yet the undeniable absence of God from the Constitution poses a serious historical problem for pious originalists who, while insisting that the Constitution can mean only what its precise wording laid out in the 18th century, are equally insistent that the framers intended to establish a Christian government.